Once again, the undefeated Mayweather proves to the world why he is one of boxing's best fighters and biggest superstars.
Defend yourself at all times.
And for the first time ever, HBO's 24/7 follows the action and drama all the way through to the aftermath. Don't miss World Championship Boxing. Mayweather-Ortiz, Saturday night at 9:45, only on HBO.
Who is against you?
All of them. I will ruin you. All of you.
Break down that door!
Jesus Christ, just kill him.
And now, HBO Documentary Films presents The Strange History of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
The military would be altered if we weren't a part of it. We play a big role. First off, you have no idea how many of us there are. There's no real count, so there's only estimates, but it's a very large number.
Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. We come in, we do our job, let's go home. You know, mission first, anything else second.
We're all fighting for the same thing.
There are way more of us than they think, and then we're working right with them. We're everywhere.
For the first time since 1993, Don't Ask, Don't Tell will be debated at a Senate hearing. The Senate Armed Services Committee will hear testimony from Defense Secretary Bob Gates and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen.
The committee is now going to receive testimony of addressing the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy on gays in the military.
Mr. Chairman, speaking for myself and myself only, it is my personal belief that allowing gays and lesbians to serve openly would be the...
I'm a naval petty officer, first class. I do radio communication for the armed forces.
I've been flying helicopters for about 12 years now. I'm going on deployments again to the Middle East.
I'm an E6, or what the Navy calls first class petty officer.
Am I patriotic? Yes. That's an easy answer.
I love my country, and I want to fight to serve, to protect, to defend it. You know, even if it's not going to do the same thing for me.
I've had 7 friends discharged under the policy. One was a culinary specialist, third class, CS3 in the Navy. This guy had made the Navy his life, and just as I have. And when he was facing discharge, he went down to the gun range, rented a gun, and turned the gun on himself. That was the loss of a great sailor and an awesome friend.
One of the most critical contributions to the American Revolutionary War was made by a gay Prussian captain named Captain von Steuben. Von Steuben wrote a training manual about discipline and order in the U.S. military that George Washington said was absolutely critical to the success in the Revolutionary War.
The military had spent $1 billion on psychological casualties of the First World War, and as the country mobilized for the Second World War, military leaders were looking for a way to avoid some of the psychological and medical costs. And so in their minds, because homosexuality was a sign of effeminacy and weakness, they should keep gay soldiers out of the military, because if gays entered the military, they would become bad soldiers, psychological casualties, and become a burden for the armed forces.
They were focused on the stereotype, and that's what drove the politics. They didn't appreciate that, for the most part, gays and lesbians in the military are indistinguishable from their straight counterparts.
Ironically, World War II was the moment that the military became zealous in its anti-gay sentiment, and at the same time that gay identity began to emerge. Part of the reason was that for the first time in many cases, men who enjoyed the company of other men found themselves together.
There were 13 million of us taken away from home, and then same sexuality flourished. I went in the Army at 17 and ended up in the Pacific for 3 years, and nobody questioned it. Yes, the authorities did. Officers who had not gone overseas were very strict. People would say, "Have you heard what's going on down in Tarawa?" "Yes, I've heard," you know. Shock, isn't it?
The celebration went on for the end of the greatest war in history.
After the war, the military was trying to downsize, and one of their strategies was to get rid of people with something called blue discharges. In other words, a discharge for being crazy. A large number of gays received these discharges, and they were put on ships and simply dumped at ports such as San Francisco.
The emergence of gay identities in cities is directly attributable to our military. In World War II, after people left the service, gay communities gained enormous strength. And in fact, the very heart of the Castro in San Francisco and the Village in New York is because of veterans who populated the city at the time.
We knew there were gays when I was in the service in the 60s. We knew. But our thing was, our lives are dependent here. You know, we can't be worried about these small things, you know. What does he do in his private life? I don't care. What I want to know is, can this guy fly in a plane? And so what happened was, some people were thrown out for being gay. Some people were kept in. It was really up to the commander. Well, one young man who got thrown out said, well, wait a second, they kept this other guy in, so he went to court.
It was in 1975 when Air Force Tech Sergeant Leonard Matlovich decided to challenge the policy which prohibits homosexuals from serving in the military. He told his commanding officer that he was gay. The 12-year veteran who served 2 tours in Vietnam and who earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart went before a review board which gave him a general discharge.
Matlovich was the first to come along, wearing the uniform, and take the military to court and say, I'm gay, I'm a member of this organization, I want to be treated with dignity like my straight counterparts.
A lot of people have come up to me and said that, really right now I can't go public, or I can't even tell my parents, but you've given me confidence that, to keep on fighting.
The 1970s was the birth of the modern gay rights movement. And so when Leonard Matlovich, who had been on magazine covers as a war hero, challenged the policy in the military, it began a national discussion.
Sail the seven seas in the Navy. Yes, you can put your mind at ease in the Navy. Come on now, people, make a stand in the Navy. Can't you see we need a hand in the Navy? Come on, protect the motherland in the Navy.
Without any kind of contact to real gay people, it's very easy to see a popular music group making a nice tune about the Navy, because the reality of what it's like to be a gay or lesbian service member is absent in the leadership.
They want you, they want you, they want you as a new recruit.
Finally, I guess somebody wised them up and said, you know, this is a group that's, it's popular in the gay world, and some of them are gay, and so, of course, the Navy immediately stopped.
We have gathered to honor our fallen, those who served and died to defend our nation and our freedoms, even if those freedoms were not always granted to them and to us. Some, like Leonard Matlovich, were famous, the glory of their times. Others, perhaps most, were known only to those who loved them. We honor them all.
When I was in the military, they gave me a medal for killing 2 men and a discharge for loving 1.
Right after the Matlovich case, you began to have this cluster of court cases in the federal courts where service members said, there's no basis for this. This is a violation of constitutional rights.
I was discharged when I was honest in a top secret security clearance and said that I was a lesbian. It really didn't make sense that I was going to be dangerous to the military after serving in Vietnam and earning a Bronze Star. Nobody knew what it meant to be gay. There was still the stigma of you're mentally ill or a predator or all sorts of misinformation. And so you felt very, very isolated and alone.
Governor Clinton, I'm Colonel Kammermeyer. I was discharged from the military 6 weeks ago because I told the defense investigator that I was a lesbian.
When candidate Clinton ran for the presidency, asked if he would overturn the ban on gays serving in the military.
And I'm wondering if you would consider doing that in 1993 when you become president.
Yes. This woman served her country for more than 2 decades with great distinction and should not have been prohibited from doing so.
We have a question.
I, William Jefferson Clinton,
Bill Clinton, as a candidate, said that he would do it like President Truman had desegregated the military, with a stroke of a pen, an executive order.
He faced a coalition of opponents that no president would have been able to surmount.
It's nothing to do with gay versus non-gay. It has to do with what's best for the defense of this country.
The military didn't respect him. He was seen as a hippie, an anti-war protester, a pot smoker, and he was successfully depicted as being anti-military.
We should leave the ban on gays on active duty service with the military in place.
I do not believe that we can allow politics to destroy the greatest army that the world has ever known.
President Clinton has said he will stick to his proposal to lift the ban, although all 5 military service chiefs support it.
He underestimated the fierceness of the resistance of people in the military, of social conservatives, and of the religious right. And all of these forces got together very quickly and he had a fight on his hands.
I pledged last fall in debate on the floor of the Senate to have thorough hearings on this subject in the Armed Services Committee this year. We intend to have hearings on it. Committee will come to order.
Senator Sam Nunn spearheaded opposition in the Congress.
Under current regulations, gay men and lesbians are not permitted to serve in the armed forces of the United States.
We're about to look at a policy which would compel the U.S. military to accept openly and acknowledge the existence of a class of people whose lifestyle is found by many Americans to be unacceptable.
Part of me wants to go down to a recruiting station and say, don't join. You know, you're not enlisting in the military, you're sentencing yourself to 4 years in a gay bathhouse.
Open homosexuality in units is not just the acceptance of benign characteristics such as color or race or background. It involves matters of privacy and human sexuality that, in our judgment, if allowed to exist in the force, would affect the cohesion and well-being of the force.
One of the analogies we made was the discrimination based on race. He specifically said, oh no, they're very different. Race is a benign condition. I don't know what that made us, a malign condition.
It gave cover to people who were able to then say, this isn't like racial integration, and Colin Powell says so. That would end the conversation.
Do all of you agree with that skin color is a benign, non-behavioral characteristic, and sexual orientation is behavioral? Dr. Marlowe?
I would agree, sir.
Dr. Henderson?
Generally agree with that, yes.
Dr. Corbett?
I think the research shows that people basically are born with this rather than being a learned behavior.
A lot of Republicans were quite annoyed because I had a military background and I had worked for President Reagan in the Pentagon. Then here I was supporting President Clinton. So I went up to testify, and usually a hearing lasts an hour or two. This lasted 5 hours. And the other people up there were saying things that just made no sense at all and weren't scientifically proven. It was very traumatic.
The same attractions or tensions that exist between male and female exist between two homosexuals or two or more. They have an attraction.
Well, I think there's a body of evidence that shows that not every gay man is attracted to every other man.
How do you view that, having looked at the military over the years?
I disagree with that statement, precisely because there are homoerotic tendencies in all male groups.
Charlie Moscos claimed that he was the architect of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He is known as having coined the phrase Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
This is exactly why the ban, I think I would turn that around and say exactly why a stiff ban, would have to be in place. Because once these homoerotic tendencies are out, the cat's out of the bag, then you have all kinds of negative effects on unit cohesion.
Unit cohesion.
Unit cohesion.
Unit cohesion.
Unit cohesion. Unit cohesion.
For unit cohesion.
Unit cohesion.
Building cohesion.
They had to come up with a reason that sounded rational. And so they came up with this idea of the unit cohesion to justify their homophobia.
They came up with something that sounded reasonable. The idea that there was so much dislike or even outright hatred that the mere knowledge of the presence of a gay person in a unit would degrade unit cohesion and impair combat readiness.
Several of these officers subsequently told me after they retired it was something that they basically dreamed up when they found that there was no other explanation for the ban.
I've never raised that as an argument, that unit cohesion is the major thing. It's a question of privacy rights. If one wants to have open gays and straights showering together, then you should say, why not have men and women do the same thing? Why not make the argument, let's have people who are mentally deficient come into the Army? Why not have overweight people? Why do we have these rules about you can't have excessive tattoos?
I had actually raised the issue with the ban on gays in the military with Colin Powell and Dick Cheney, and they both admitted that the only reason I have it was that other people were prejudiced. I mean, they said there's no security clearance issue, there's no, the gays and lesbians are perfectly good military people.
The military's own research already showed that gays would not pose a problem. The Rand Corporation did a multi-million-dollar study during the 1993 debates. And the RAND Corporation, we have to remember, is a think tank that was created by the Air Force.
The research conducted by RAND provides evidence that homosexuals can be successfully integrated into military and public security organizations.
RAND found that allowing gays and lesbians to serve openly would cause no problem for readiness or morale or unit cohesion or any other aspect of military performance.
The question of gays in the military has been studied to death.
Word had circulated that there was a report that the military was trying to prevent from being published. And one day, a copy of the report just showed up, and it was subsequently leaked to the press.
They said, the policy of keeping gays out doesn't make any sense.
Homosexual men and women as a group are not different from heterosexual men and women in regard to adjustment criteria or job performance.
And so the Pentagon tried to bury that study. And the Navy did a study in 1957 that said the same thing.
The Crittenden Report is the first known study on sexual orientation and the armed forces, and the Crittenden Committee concluded that gays and lesbians posed no security threat, were not a risk, and could serve as effectively as straight people.
No factual data exists to support the contention that homosexuals are a greater risk than heterosexuals.
There has never been any research showing that gays undermine unit cohesion or military effectiveness. But the military has an ignoble history of burying the results of those studies when they come up with a conclusion that's at odds with the historical anti-gay sentiment in the military.
I come here before you a proud American, and I would continue to be serving in the military if I hadn't told the truth.
There was a wall that you could see going up. It was almost like you were revealing that you had a contagious disease.
It comes down to this. People who go in the military, and I was privileged to serve, we all have to give up something.
It was extremely humiliating to have to sit in front of these elder statesmen, their pontification about me and about my sexual orientation.
We have to give up some of our constitutional rights. We have to give up a degree of privacy. If you feel that intensely and that patriotic that you want to serve, then give up a little something.
We have, sir.
All right, let me just finish.
I think I interrupted John Warner probably 20 times in the course of the time that he was trying to tell everybody how bad we were.
To deal with this in such a manner, let me just finish one point, and then I'll yield the rest of my time to you.
And for him to finally saying, couldn't you just be quiet?
Is it too much to ask that you just serve honorably, quietly, and efficiently?
As long as the regulation isn't there.
I'll come to you in a minute, Doc. Just bear with me. Give it up.
And I remember I just kept my mouth shut because it was so painful.
People were struggling a lot.
In the time in which I was growing up, an unacceptable form of discrimination was race, or ethnicity, or religion, not sexual orientation. Here we are today, and we've begun to try to work our way through the questions of discrimination in regard to sexual orientation.
It was the first time I'd ever actually dealt with this on the federal level.
I wouldn't say that I'm totally open-minded, but I know that I've not reached a conclusion.
Glad to have you on board. They've already heard from just about everybody else, so today the Senate Armed Services Committee visited the fleet to get their views on gays in the military, and they got an earful.
We're tired of having the military used as some sort of a social thermometer for the rest of the country.
You afraid there'd be violence?
Yes, sir, I do.
You heard anybody say that?
A lot of people, sir. It's a lot of talk.
A lot of people feel, hey, if they look at me the wrong way, I'm going to knock them out.
Discrimination is a domestic enemy. I swore to defend fundamental values of America. These values are ignored by the current policy.
Your lifestyle is not normal. It's not normal for a man to want to be with a man or a woman with a woman.
And everywhere he went, Sam Nunn reminded the sailors that he might just torpedo the president's plans to lift the ban.
So the president has a right to issue an order and change the policy and allow gays and lesbians to serve openly if he chooses to. The Congress has a right to override that by law.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. The policy I am announcing today is, in my judgment, the right thing to do and the best way to do it, because it provides a sensible balance between the rights of the individual and the needs of our military to remain the world's #1 fighting force. This is a major step forward. 1, servicemen and women will be judged based on their conduct, not their sexual orientation. 2, therefore, the practice, now 6 months old, of not asking about sexual orientation in the enlistment procedure will continue. It is, in my judgment, an honorable compromise. Thank you very much.
Give President Clinton his due. He was really trying to lead on the general question and challenge of gay rights in 1993. But Don't Ask, Don't Tell, for the first time, really put into law the basic inequity, which was, if I may put it this way, un-American.
Don't ask is a myth. We are asked about our lives every day. Now, who are you going to the movies with this weekend? Who called you? Why aren't you married? These are the daily questions that we all get asked.
Whenever you meet someone new in the Army, you want to know if they're married, you want to know if they have kids, you want to know where they're from, you want to know about these people.
People ask all the time, what are you doing this weekend? People just want to know.
People start wondering why, as a first lieutenant or a captain, are they not at least engaged or at least considering getting married and starting a family? As the years go on, it's going to be tougher and tougher to answer those kind of questions.
I've gotten disciplined. I've had senior officers talk to me about being antisocial because I didn't want to participate in outside of activities.
If you can imagine what it would be like to hide a spouse, how do you accomplish that every day?
Every house we go to, it has to have a high fence because I don't want anybody to be able to see into our backyard. I want to have somewhere where we can be ourselves other than inside our homes. I'm constantly afraid of outing her. If we run into people in public that she does know from work, I'll just keep on walking like I don't even know her.
It actually got to the point where I thought seriously about hurting myself, and I had realized that I was in a pretty dangerous spot because I couldn't turn to anybody.
My friends and I kind of say that we live in this sort of continuum of near misses, that we always have this constant missed shots that almost hit us.
To keep your job, to keep your sanity, not to be paranoid, wondering if someone's going to turn you in, or you don't know what people's intentions are. Some people can say, oh, I'm cool with it, but the next day they can go in and report you and, you're gone.
Dixon Osborne of the Service Members Legal Defense Network joins us. He's part of an organization that opposes the policy.
Any policy that discriminates or treats lesbian gays differently than heterosexuals, I think, is rife with problems.
The phones were ringing off the hook from service members. Is it true that we can serve openly now? They were left out on a limb.
Nobody thought about what was going to happen to the service members except the people who founded SLBN.
They knew that service members were going to get tripped up with this law.
Don't ask, don't tell was supposed to mean that if you didn't volunteer that you were gay or lesbian, you were okay because they couldn't ask you. What we then got were a lot of military people asking, in effect, doing investigations, checking people's emails, watching who went to a gay bar.
SLDN is a legal services organization that provides quality, free legal services to men and women who are on active duty, in the reserves, who have been adversely impacted by Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
I knew back then that this is going to take a 20-year effort to get this law undone. We started telling stories of service members who were being turned in by their psychiatrists, because there's no confidentiality in talking to your psychiatrist. We told stories of people being turned in by their parents because they had come out to their family and the family reacted badly to it. We told stories of being turned in by your best friends. We told stories of people having their diaries taken, and they'd use that as a basis for their discharge.
What we found in the first year under Don't Ask, Don't Tell is that the military continues to ask, it continues to pursue, and it continues to harass.
I remember one service member in Hawaii who was caught in a witch hunt, and he was so scared even to contact SLDN. And he describes having to go to the library on the base and look up in the white pages to try to find our number. And he went back to his room, and he pulled the sheets over his head and had a flashlight on the phone and the phone number, and called us in whispers.
It's a policy that was designed to make sexual orientation into a kind of non-issue, and it was supposed to end witch hunts and end pursuits. But instead, discharge figures shot up.
The Service Members Legal Defense Network reports the Pentagon is kicking gays out of the military at a rapid pace despite the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. The gay rights group says that's a 5-year high.
Sir, I have a question. What exactly does Don't Ask mean?
Don't Ask means that a soldier will not be asked to divulge or discuss their sexual orientation unless there is credible information of homosexual conduct.
Got a minute, sir?
This is a story about homosexual conduct. When you're finished reading this, you'll be able to define credible information, explain the process
Gotta
for
call the battalion
investigating
commander,
an
Lieutenant
allegation
Colonel
when
Nichols.
information is determined.
So what are you going to do, ma'am?
Based on William's statement, I may have to initiate discharge procedures.
So, once you're
when you look at the evidentiary requirements that are built into the law, it turns out that any evidence whatsoever can be used to prove that someone has a gay identity. Walking in the woods with a person of the same sex can be used to prove that you're gay.
Could be a bumper sticker, could be an email. What is credible information? A statement by a reliable person that he or she had observed or discovered a soldier saying or putting in writing a statement acknowledging a homosexual act or the intent to engage in a homosexual act. Hello?
A statement, a telephone call. What was that, Sergeant? Anything where you indicated that you have, currently do, intend to, or even have a propensity to engage in homosexual acts, get you kicked out.
People have been determined or found to be gay by military judges for attending the Dinah Shore golf tournament. And so behavior which has nothing to do with sex becomes legally equivalent to a crime.
Wouldn't admitting to being a homosexual be an easy way for soldiers to get out of the Army?
No, absolutely not. If a soldier admits to being a homosexual, the commander must examine sufficient information to determine the sincerity of the soldier.
Written into the law is something called a queen for a day presumption, which means that if you are caught having gay sex, but you can prove that you're not gay, that you don't carry a gay identity, that this was a homosexual emergency, that this was an accident, that you were, in effect, a queen for a day, then you are not punished even though you have had gay sex.
I'm really looking forward to a great weekend.
Oh yeah? What are you doing?
I have a date.
You? A date? I would believe that Gates over there had a date with another man before I'd ever believe that you have a hot date.
Hey, Gates, would you enjoy a date with a good-looking man, too?
Winchell was beaten to death while asleep in his barracks in the early morning of July 5th.
He was killed with a baseball bat to his head.
Barry Winchell faced anti-gay harassment every day for 4 months prior to his murder. And he even confided to friends of his, "What do I do? I'm afraid to go to my commander because I tell my commander I'm being harassed because people think I'm gay. They're going to kick me out, and the Army's the only thing I have."
If you're gay or lesbian and you're having a problem, you can't go to the people you're supposed to be able to go to and say, "I need help. I'm facing anti-gay harassment. What can I do? How can you protect me?" Because simply having that conversation means that the person you're talking to could turn you in and you could end up losing your career.
This is bigger than just gay rights. It's something that cuts to the core of what America is fighting for, and is a reminder that when one group's rights are trampled upon, the entire culture is diminished.
I, George Walker Bush,
do solemnly swear.
do solemnly swear.
I'm for don't ask, don't tell. And I think it's up to the military to make sure we enforce it. This is a policy thoughtfully put in place.
When other countries or NATO allies allowed openly gay people to serve, people would say, yes, but the British don't, and they're the most like us. Well, the European Court of Human Rights basically in 1999 said, you want to be in the European Union, you got to let them serve. So the British allowed openly gay people to serve, and they haven't any problems.
We know that intelligence intercepted pre-9/11 was not translated until after 9/11 because of a shortage of linguists. The Arabic linguists that have been discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell certainly could have helped fill those shortages. Two phrases in Arabic, which mean tomorrow is 0 hour and the match begins tomorrow, weren't translated until 2 days after 9/11. And to anyone who speaks Arabic, you know those are two of the easiest phrases to translate.
The prevalent fear in the culture was that terrorists from Al-Qaeda were going to slip a nuclear weapon into an American city. The fears were incredibly intense. So when we broke the story, it was a very powerful aha moment in which people said, oh my God, like, all right, there's this gays in the military thing, like whatever, but we're doing something which could allow a nuclear weapon to be exploded in an American city. Like, this is ridiculous. Regardless of what your feelings are about gays in the military, you don't want cables to sit untranslated.
Starting in 2001, gay discharge figures went down each year because commanders in the field know gay people don't undercut the mission.
I'll never forget being a young first lieutenant, and folks who didn't want to deploy would come in and be like, well, I'm gay. And I'd say, well, you're deploying.
There are countless examples of commanders who were told by someone, I'm gay, and the commander said, no, you're not, get back to work. You're going overseas anyway.
I said, listen, it's not a policy I agree with, and we need these soldiers.
The Reserve Commander's Handbook said if a reservist has orders for a deployment and he or she makes a statement that they're gay, send them anyway and deal with it when they come back. How then can you argue that they're a disruption to unit morale, unit cohesion, or combat readiness? You're sending them to combat, knowing that they're gay, and then when they come back, after they put their life on the line, then you kick them out. Doesn't make any sense at all, does it?
They kept lowering their standards. And they were giving people moral waivers including some with felony convictions, and we're throwing people out for no other reason than their sexual orientation? Let me give you an example of somebody we took in. There's a young man, former Army private by the name of Stephen Green, who's now serving a life sentence in Kentucky. When Green tried to join the Army in Texas in 2005, he's a high school dropout. He has 3 misdemeanor convictions, and he's got some personality problems. They gave him a waiver. They took him in. Sent him to Iraq. He ended up with 2 other people, raping a young lady, then burning her body and her family's. So to me, it was hurting national security. I mean, who would you rather take, him or somebody who's gay or lesbian, who's got a perfect record, high school graduate, stellar performance on the aptitude test, no moral problems?
The first thing we're taught in boot camp, before we're taught to stand at attention, they teach us how to say very loudly, honor, courage, and commitment, and what those 3 words mean.
You want those of us that are homosexual to hide ourselves. There's no honor in that. There's no integrity.
Don't Ask, Don't Tell forces you and actually tells you as a gay person that you need to be untruthful and dishonest.
How can I be myself and how can I be truthful and honorable if I have to lie?
Essentially what they're asking me to do is lie on a daily basis to the people I love the most, to the people I would like to be honest with.
As a leader in the military, it interferes because the integrity, the honesty isn't there, and they know it. So it undermines their trust in me.
My family has a rich history of military service. We all took the oath. My father is a retired senior officer from the Air Force. We all wear the uniform. Several other uncles retired from the Marine Corps and from the Army. But the spirit of a soldier, that's never changed. That's never going to change. I had been serving in Iraq with my unit. I had written a series of emails to family and friends, no different from what anyone else would write to their loved ones back home. Shortly after I had left Iraq, the unit that replaced mine, someone was doing a routine search and somehow or another stumbled upon my private emails and proceeded to read them. And they searched approximately 500 emails and pulled out maybe a dozen or so that were damaging. And then my commander called me in his office. He read me the military's policy on homosexuality. I had no clue that any of this was happening, so it completely bowled me over. And I told him I would not make a statement until I had first consulted with a lawyer. So right then and there, my commander relieved me of my duties. I was given a police escort from the base, as if I were a common criminal or a threat to national security. It was very intense. It completely dispels the notion that as long as gays and lesbians are quiet and don't make any waves for themselves or don't make a statement that they're going to be just fine, but that's not the case.
Hey guys, how are you? I'm Patrick Murphy.
Of the 9 Iraq veterans running for Congress this year, most of them are anti-war. Captain Patrick Murphy served 7 months in Iraq.
I'm straight, I have 2 kids, I have a beautiful wife. But listen, I take an oath as a congressman, just like I did as an Army officer, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Listen, if you want to take a bullet for your country, sign up, grab a rifle, and serve. That's what it's about.
Is that the,
Oh, no,
I already gave it. Kept the call in. Every day we're up on Capitol Hill, over the Pentagon, or at the White House urging repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I'll probably be back in about an hour and a half.
What would be the greater threat to our national security and military necessity? Leaving a terrorist document untranslated or having a gay soldier fight alongside a straight one?
We need people who are good linguists, but not necessarily should they be gay.
Right.
I mean,
Ms.
that's a
Donnelly, come on,
stereotype.
let's be straight here. Let's be straight, and that's what the American people want. We have let go 12,000 American men and women soldiers, not for sexual misconduct, but because of their sexual orientation. 58 of those are translators.
You could reduce this number to 0 if the Department of Defense dropped Don't Ask, Don't Tell and enforced the law properly. We should not be training people who are not eligible to be in the armed forces.
There's already rules in place to address sexual misconduct, whether it's homosexual misconduct or heterosexual misconduct, as compared to your orientation. And we need more good people, whether they're gay or straight, to join our military and to serve honorably.
Do you think that there would be more people willing to join the submarine force if they knew that professed homosexuals would be on submarines? I don't think so.
Well, Ms. Donnelly,
Really
I
wanna
have
see
faith
this
in
as
those
a
18,
national
19-year-olds.
security issue.
Okay, I thought you asked me a question, I'm going to answer it. Usually it comes from the other side of the dais, but...
The Pentagon confirmed today military leaders once proposed building a so-called gay bomb.
One distasteful but completely non-lethal example would be strong aphrodisiacs, especially if the chemical also caused homosexual behavior.
A gay bomb, so-called, that would render enemy forces so smitten with one another, they would forget about fighting.
The idea was that because homosexuality is the same as weakness and effeminacy, that if only we could make the troops of the other side become gay, then we could prevail on the battlefield.
It shows you the extent of the silliness that surrounds the issue of sexual orientation in some people's minds when they're ignorant about the issue, basically. It basically is a reflection of ignorance.
I'm going to be running out of the office. I'm going to ask Kevin to get back to you and work with you on this.
Have you been to Nose? Yeah. But each time I've gone, it's been a disappointment. But I know people keep saying it's good. Yeah, but it's just not worked out. I joined the military because I come from a military family. My father was in the Air Force for 20 years. My mother was in the Air Force. I've been in the Air Force for 18 and a half years now. On 9/11, I was one of the first alert crews flying over Washington, D.C. My first combat missions, dropping bombs in Iraq, were 3-4 days before the war actually started, before anybody saw bombs dropped on TV. Decorations, 9 air medals and 1 for heroism, 5 Air Force Commendation Medals, a Navy Marine Corps Commendation Medal, and then 3 Air Force Achievement Medals. The worst day of my life was May 16th, 2008. That was the day the Air Force sat me down and said, here's what we got. We're gonna launch an investigation. You'll probably get thrown out of the Air Force for this.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in presenting the Barry Winchell Courage Award to Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fahrenbach.
Last May, when I contacted SLDN and told them I had made the decision to go public, I was scheduled to appear on the Rachel Maddow Show on Tuesday, but there was a catch. It was Friday, and I hadn't even come out to my family yet. Let alone told them I was getting thrown out of the military, and let alone tell them I was going on national TV to talk about it. Now, I drop bombs for a living. But I'm pretty sure these were the 3 biggest bombs I ever dropped. My family all agreed. Not only should I do this, but I had to do this. It was a duty and an obligation.
Because Victor Fahrenbach and Major Mike Almey went before the American people, they made a huge difference in this debate. Between the two of them, they had been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan more than 10 times. Victor Fahrenbach The Air Force had invested more than $20 million in his training. And they were getting ready to throw that out of the window. When you have over 13,000 service members discharged under this law, it isn't working. When you have even more who have resigned because they did not want to serve anymore under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, it's not working. When you have a generation of young people not even considering the service because of the statute, it's not working.
I have stated repeatedly that Don't Ask, Don't Tell makes no sense. Why would we not want able men and women who are willing to sacrifice on our behalf? Why would we tell them no?
I believe that discrimination in any form is unacceptable in America today. Now, having said that, I have to tell you that I support the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy in the military.
I was one of the first guys for Barack Obama. One of the things that he talked to me about was the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I told him how I saw so many great leaders get thrown out just because they happen to be gay, not for any type of misconduct, and how wrong I thought it was. And he said he agreed with me.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear. I will work with Congress and our military to finally repeal the law that denies gay Americans the right to serve the country they love because of who they are.
One of his first meetings with the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff and his Secretary of Defense, he said, hey guys, you know this problem, you know this Don't Ask, Don't Tell is un-American and it's wrong. We got to change it. And soon after, we began to work to do just that.
There was a big fight to get the votes. Right-wing people try to portray this as the end of the military, etc.
The Senate's not engaged enough, and we have to find a way to ask every senator to stand up and state where they are on repeal. Republicans and Democrats, and the independents.
We're trying to harness the momentum gained earlier this week.
Right.
And write it.
Okay, so that's the DOT. And then SLDN's numbers. Okay.
The thing that happened here, different from '93, is the gay rights movement was organized and extremely effective. I mean, some of my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, who ended up supporting repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, did so because they were very effectively lobbied. And that's totally different than existed in '93.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Let's go with it.
Joining us now is Dan Choi.
I am an infantry platoon leader in the New York Army National Guard, and by saying 3 words to you today, I am gay, those 3 words are a violation of Title 10 of the U.S. Code.
Fundamentally, I am a troublemaker who agitated a situation by saying 3 words.
Are you worried you could lose your job?
Politics is war without blood. War is politics with blood. In war, we recognize that there are consequences. Why is it that in politics, particularly for gay people, why is it that we refuse to wield the sword of consequence?
One particular meeting really inspired me to action, and that was when I met with Lieutenant Dan Choi. He said that, you know, we are asking these men and women to lie every day, and it was so powerful to me because I couldn't even imagine that for a straight officer. So why would you allow it for a member who's gay? So I thought it was time that I provided leadership. So I wrote a bill, repeal this policy. Once I wrote the bill, I started counting the votes, and I didn't have quite 60. But because I was so close, the few senators who were undecided said, I first need to see leadership from the military. And so I went to the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Chairman Levin, and I asked him, I said, would you please hold a hearing on Don't Ask, Don't Tell? And he said yes.
What I'm hoping to do is persuade colleagues to repeal the discriminatory provision, and in the meantime, suspend discharging people while this issues being resolved.
A new article in the Pentagon's own top scholarly journal, Joint Force Quarterly, written for the Joint Chiefs of Staff by an Air Force colonel, has concluded that, quote, there is no scientific evidence to support the claim that unit cohesion
In this
will be negatively
article,
affected
an active duty Air Force colonel working in the Pentagon makes the point that don't ask, don't tell is unnecessary. We don't need it. It's not going to degrade unit morale, unit cohesion, or combat readiness. And he provides a very forceful series of arguments to prove his point.
I'm going to call Chairman Levin's counsel now and to let him know that you will testify.
The highlight of the hearing was Admiral Mullen testifying on don't ask, don't tell.
I was so excited. I was sitting there watching Admiral Mullen, and I was overjoyed.
Mr. Chairman, speaking for myself and myself only, it is my personal belief that allowing gays and lesbians to serve openly would be the right thing to do.
Yes, very well done, Mullen. I think my heart stopped for more than a moment. Frankly, I had to avoid a tear.
No matter how I look at this issue, I cannot escape being troubled by the fact that we have in place a policy which forces young men and women to lie about who they are in order to defend their fellow citizens. For me, personally, it comes down to integrity. Theirs as individuals and ours as an institution.
I had tears in my eyes. In fact, I have tears in my eyes now because I'm thinking about the sort of catch in my voice. It was a very emotional moment.
I thought that was a critical moment in the whole effort to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Admiral Mullen spoke really from his heart.
Secretary Gates.
We have received our orders from the Commander-in-Chief, and we are moving out accordingly. I have appointed a high-level working group that will immediately begin a review of the issues associated with properly implementing a repeal of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy.
I'm deeply disappointed in your statement, Secretary Gates. I was around here in 1993 and was engaged in the debates. Your statement, obvious, is one which is clearly biased. This is a letter signed by over 1,000 former general and flag officers who have weighed in on this issue.
A majority of those flag officers are in their 70s. Some are in their 80s.
Some of the people's names are on there are dead.
I think that we all in Congress should pay attention and benefit from the experience and knowledge of over 1,000 former general officers and flag officers.
They want the military to be the way it was when they served. Some of them were in the ranks when the military services were segregated.
You are saying it's not whether the military prepares to make the change, but how we best prepare for it. Well, I'm happy to say that we still have a Congress of the United States that would have to pass a law to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, despite your efforts.
It was extraordinary. We've never heard the President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, all in the matter of a few days, calling for repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So it's an extraordinary day for us and for service members who want to serve their country openly.
I knew that we were stepping into a very emotional political issue that didn't get talked about a whole lot around the Pentagon or around the entire military. We were going to really be stirring the pot. We set out to systematically engage the force. That meant a survey to 400,000 service members, which is probably the largest survey ever of the U.S. military, aside from the census. We surveyed 150,000 military spouses. We got 72,000 emails. We went around the country. We went overseas. We came face to face with about 25,000 service members. And this was a topic that the year before never got talked about in a group larger than 3 or 4.
There's nothing seriously homoerotic about a submarine. There's the old joke that, 100 guys go down and 50 couples come up. But that's really not the case. The showers are all enclosed, the racks have curtains on them. I've never seen a naked person on a submarine. It's basically a moving nuclear power plant, and there's nothing sexy about a nuclear power plant.
Since I've been in the military, I have had one instance of taking a group shower that everyone seems to be terrified about.
It's like the astronauts that have to answer, how do you go to the bathroom in space? It's the same level of just, come on.
If you're a gay guy in this country, you're in the showers with straight guys your whole life. And so for a gay guy, it's been there, done that, no big deal, who cares? But for a straight guy who is almost never naked in the shower with a woman, it's quite a unique experience and would be sexually titillating. So you can see how he would project that onto the gay guy and thinking that the gay guy would really be sexually attracted to him, to the straight guy, if he was naked in the shower together. And so you have to sort of talk about that, and the response is, you've already been in the shower with a gay guy. You just don't know it.
The issue isn't whether or not gay and lesbian Americans are serving in the military, it's whether or not we talk about it. So, how are you going to get their input in this survey?
Oh, my take on that is, well, hang on a second. I think that we would have to look very carefully at how we would do that.
Don't Ask, Don't Tell shields itself from scrutiny, from study, from examination, because it prevents gay service members from telling their stories.
Someone was blackmailing me, and a bunch of my friends found out about it, and they got very upset about it, so they created a website to share stories about people being blackmailed or in bad situations. What we did was we created a hidden Facebook group to connect people across the military. You have to be invited or be referred to get into this group, and that's how people are able to see each other, to connect with one another.
Once you meet one or two, you meet hundreds of other gay military.
So it's just this geometric expansion of the whole network.
Once you get to know one gay person in the military, really kind of a whole little informal network built up there, people who all know each other.
The DOD was going to different bases to talk to people about how they felt about the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, but if you went to these briefings, you were told not to identify your sexual orientation. Anyone that was straight was able to voice their opinion very openly, but if you were gay, you couldn't openly speak about the policy at all. So we wrote this letter to Secretary Gates. We were eventually brought to the table to the Pentagon Working Group.
Amendment numbered 79, offered by Mr. Patrick Murphy of Pennsylvania.
This is a blatant political ploy in order to try to galvanize the political base of the other side, which is facing a losing election.
The motion is not agreed to.
Senator McCain had the votes for a delay, and that's what this vote represents. It's a standoff, and time is the enemy.
This was not the last chance to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but it might have been the best chance for some time to come.
Political aftershocks echoed in Washington and around the country today after Republicans scored resounding victories in the midterm elections.
You know, a lot of people, frankly, have said that, you know, I lost my race because I led the fight to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Drop.
I'm not sure if it's true or not, but at the end of the day, my job in Congress wasn't just to get reelected. You know, when my kids, one day, when they're Googling their daddy and what he did when he was in the Congress, you know, what did he stand for? What did he fight for? I want to make sure that they know that their daddy fought for what he thought was right for our country, and I want them to be proud.
The midterms made it more important to get it done this year. It's challenging enough in 2010 to do this, as you have seen for the past 18 months. Yeah, it will be extraordinarily tough. But look, we didn't come this far to give up today.
There's yet another breaking story to tell you about a federal district court judge in Southern California ruling that the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy is unconstitutional under the Fifth and First Amendments.
The log cabin Republicans case sent us into, frankly, a real panic, because on October 11th, we had a law that we were enforcing on a daily basis. Then all of a sudden, on October 12th, a district judge tells you, you must stop. You have to tell a force of 2 million people, stop enforcing this law on a worldwide basis. That had a real impact on Secretary Gates.
Now that we have completed this review, I strongly urge the Senate to pass this legislation and send it to the President for signature before the end of this year. I believe this is a matter of some urgency because, as we have seen, the federal courts are increasingly becoming involved in this issue. The data also show
it was a very powerful moment for the military in its own voice to say, we can handle this transition without problems. And that actually moved a lot of people in the Senate and the House.
It's a very important day. 17 years ago, President Clinton signed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. November 30th, 1993. No kidding. How ironic that this report should come out 17 years later.
In summary, a strong majority of those who answered the survey, more than 2/3, do not object to gays and lesbians serving openly in uniform.
These are the things the study tells us. Now let me tell you what I believe. I believe our troops and their families are ready for this. Most of them already believe they serve or have served alongside gays and lesbians. And knowing matters a lot.
Well, I couldn't disagree more. We send these young people into combat. We think they're mature enough to fight and die. I think they're mature enough to make a judgment on who they want to serve with. Why wouldn't we just ask the question?
Because I fundamentally, sir, think it's an incredibly bad precedent to ask them about, to essentially vote on a policy.
I can't think of a single precedent in American history of doing a referendum of the American Armed Forces on a policy issue. Are you going to ask them if they want 15-month tours? You're going to ask them if they want to be part of the surge in Iraq? That's not the way our civilian-led military has ever worked in our entire history.
Probably the one institution, central institution in our country that the American people still have trust in is the American military.
John McCain. Frankly, he's being a bit of a bully here. And the clock is running out. We still don't know what's going to be the outcome. We have to meet that threshold of 60 votes in the Senate. And we are at the brink, and we literally do not know.
An effort to lift the military's ban on openly gay troops has failed to get off the Senate floor. A last-ditch effort Thursday fell 3 votes short. The measure wasn't a vote on the policy, but a procedural move that needed 60 votes to advance.
Okay.
What I always did is look at Aubrey, because if he looks upset and if he looks like oh my God, then I would be worried, but he didn't have that look. And I remember him like, let's look at the procedures. How do we get a bill from the House to the Senate where it doesn't have to go through committee, but it can be done in days? It's like, because we're out of time.
Most people don't know that when the crunch came, Aubrey Sarvis came up with the idea to have a standalone bill voted on in the House and Senate, and worked with Senator Lieberman and Congressman Murphy to make that happen.
So you might want to make a copy of it, then you can give it back to me.
Anytime I started questioning myself or whether or not we could accomplish it, I thought back to an email I got from a company commander in Kabul, Afghanistan, and he said, on my 4th deployment, I love serving in our military, but never in a million years did I think what happened tonight would happen to me. The problem is that I happen to be gay, and my partner after 4 deployments just couldn't do it anymore. And he wrote me a letter and let me know that he was going to be there when I came home. And I felt so alone, and I have nowhere to go. I can't go to my commander's office. I can't go to the chaplain. I can't go to a battle buddy. So I'm sitting here, and I'm cradling my 9mm weapon. And I'm thinking about blowing my brains out. But the only thing that gives me hope is that knowing that another Iraq War veteran named Patrick Murphy from Pennsylvania is fighting for me. So he just said, keep fighting. Just know there's so many of us that are counting on you.
On this vote, the yeas are 250. The nays are 175. The motion is adopted.
My work kind of, frankly, was done. We got it done in the House, and now it was in the Senate.
In this Congress, we raise our voices as one and say, Senators, kill this law. Kill this law before you go home.
Don't go home! Don't go home!
Don't go home.
Don't go home! Don't go home! Don't go home! Don't go home!
Well, I'm more than hopeful. I'm reasonably confident we have the 60 unless something happened last night that I don't know about or this morning. So we're feeling good, but never take it for granted. So we're still checking in to make sure that the votes are solid.
Unfortunately, the majority is using a lame duck session to push an agenda.
It's not a Republican or Democratic idea. It's an American idea consistent with American values. We have an opportunity not just to right a wrong, but to advance the values that the founders of our country articulated in our original American documents.
To those who are pushing this process, it is not appreciated.
This is a policy that is corrosive. You are asking men and women who want nothing but to serve this country, to give their lives for this country, to say, no, you cannot because of who you love.
The American people have spoken, and you are acting in direct repudiation of the message of the American people.
Question now occurs on the motion to concur in the House amendment to the Senate amendment to House Resolution 2965. The yeas and nays have been requested. The yeas are 65, the nays 31. The motion to concur is adopted.
The motion is agreed to.
The phone rang, and I said, hello, and he says, Patrick. And I said, yes. And he said, it's Barack. And I said, hey, Mr. President, how are you, sir? And he said, good. He goes, hell of a job. He said, congratulations, we got this done. And I said, well, thank you, sir. And I said, thanks for all your help. I said, we did it. And he said, you sure as hell right we did.
And now it is my honor to sign this bill into law.
The story of Don't Ask, Don't Tell is the story of gay rights in this country. How can one possibly justify any kind of discrimination in any other part of our society if the military says it's okay for gays to serve? When you put your life on the line for your country, how can you then be discriminated against in housing or jobs or any other silly things that, unfortunately, the gay community still has to suffer from?
You know, being gay or being bisexual or lesbian or whatever, you know, you're serving in the military, you're serving for your country, you know, you're possibly giving your life, you know, for the freedom of the people.
By the time this whole thing airs, I'll probably be in Afghanistan. And, you know, if anything happens to me over there and I didn't come back, you know, when somebody's down on one knee presenting a flag on behalf of the President and the Secretary of Defense and a grateful nation, I just want my partner. I want it to be him getting that flag.
Growing up, there was not a lot of people to look up to. My role model growing up was my mom, grandma, my sisters. That's who I wanted to be like.
I was 7 years old when man set foot on the moon. I said, that's what I want to be.
I'm always nervous before I go on stage. The crowd is what gives me the energy. The music is what gives me the energy to be up there.
Regardless the doubters, regardless the questions, regardless the criticism, none of that can be as overwhelming or as challenging as my mom's decision to uproot herself and come to America.
I can't change the color of my skin. You have to unlearn all that crap. And you have to relearn who you are at your core.
I learned to play golf with a tin can and a guava limb that I made a golf club out of it.
It takes a long time for women to feel it's all right to be a chingona.
Regardless of what this country tells you, in the negative images that you see everywhere, we had a big hand in making this country what it is.
You see your pictures and read articles about George Harrison. You don't realize that it's actually about yourself.
It's like a marriage. You love each other, but you're getting fed up. We knew he was peaking.
I was being treated like the Messiah or something.
George liked to surround himself with people that were good.
He comes into me, he said, oh, I've got this song.
People always say I'm the Beatle who changed the most.
The Stars were out in force in Las Vegas to see if the young champion Vicious Victor Ortiz would be able to take down the veteran superstar Floyd Money Mayweather, fighting for the first time in 16 months.
Young Victor Ortiz is having his moment.
No one in the arena would be ready for the sensational and incredible ending you will have to see to believe. Once again, the undefeated Mayweather proved to the world why he is one of boxing's best fighters and biggest superstars.
Defend yourself at all times.
And for the first time ever, HBO's 24/7 follows the action and drama all the way through to the aftermath. Don't miss World Championship Boxing, Mayweather Ortiz, Saturday night at 9:45, only on HBO. On the next Real Sports, the college bowls generate hundreds of millions a year, but where all the money goes might come as a surprise.
I was under the illusion that the bowls were a great payday for universities. I had that kind of public illusion, call it delusion.
The bowls may look like big business, but they're actually set up as tax-exempt public charities. Question is, how much goes to the causes they say they support?
They're supposed to be about helping the community. They're supposed to be about bringing money back to these universities. I just get a very little sense that anyone's minding the store in terms of the charitable mission. Yet they're getting all these tax-exempt benefits, and meanwhile the rest of us are all having to pull the sled in terms of higher taxes.
The Emmy Award-winning Real Sports with Brian Gumbel premieres Tuesday night at 10.
Poor Nucky's got a lot of problems this year.
Season 2 finds our characters in a powder keg. Everybody is at cross purposes. Everybody's under intense pressure.
It just goes further and further.
Smile.
And mind your own business. How about that? Smile.
I'd like to say a few words. What I have learned in my 63 years is that we all walk this razor's edge.
I'm searching for my father.
It's quite a case.
Jonathan, I'll catch you!
Don't apologize to the people you love. I'm sorry.
Stop it! I'm sick of being a park slope mom.
I want to be your son-in-law.
Are you delusional?
It's obscene. This is a really good case.
Look out, Dick!
There's killers everywhere.
Slide, Jonathan! Slide!
At least admit that it was you, David. Tell me that you did this. You think I'm stupid? Is that what it is? Do you think I'm a... I will bury you. I will kill you.
I'm speaking with
with my true voice now.
I put all this energy into my healing. That same amount of energy I now have to work.
I just got back from treatment and I feel amazing.
I meditated on you, Mom.
Why? I mean, what for? You're full of possibility.
Don't try to save me.
Wouldn't you be happier working for a place that's like giving back to the world instead of some corporate parasite that's raping the land and people?
I will not run away from life.
You got it all figured out now, Amy?
I think you're hanging on by a very thin thread.
I will be an agent of change.
You'd have to be lobotomized to sit down here?
You are a mistake, and everybody knows it.
You can wake up to your higher self. The world is full of possibility. You can really live.
I told you I didn't want to get involved.
We could do something more with our lives.
You can have it all.
If you kiss me, I promise to be happy.
With HBO Go and Max Go. Streaming you the best of HBO and Cinemax. Anytime, anywhere. Absolutely free. Get over 1,400 of your favorite series, movies, and sporting events from HBO. If it's action you want, Cinemax has more Hollywood hits, behind-the-scenes extras, and its first original series, Strike Back.
We lost a good man that night.
That's the power of Go.
I'm living the dream.
Download your Go apps today, free with your HBO and Cinemax subscriptions.
As a woman, I just think lots of fit men with guns, brilliant.
Phil's a beast. Have you seen him? Have you interviewed him yet? Did he get his top off?
It's got everything. Intrigue, whodunit, twists, turns, sex.
I think it's the first time you see my ass, and definitely not the last time.
He really has fun with the ladies.
It's scripted that way.
Naughty boy.
If we lose him, I'm never gonna sleep with you again.
Like I'd missed those 3 seconds.
Did I mention I get my ass out a lot?
He loves it.
We've been outsiders our whole life. If I want in.
We just got back from Japan with the most beautiful hooded sweatshirts the world has ever seen.
Why don't we start with 2?
So 2 dozen.
No, just 2.
Piecing together these little tiny orders from store to store is not a way to grow a business.
We got to do something to get people talking about us.
One of you needs to get shot.
Ah, give me a break.
Clothes don't make the man. It's the man that makes the clothes.
I want to be in business with you.
I can't sell this. You got to make it look upscale, professional.
You're officially big in the hood.
Such a special moment for me right now.
This is our story right here.
Can't knock the hustle.
Welcome to Orgasmic Living.
There's the private consultations.
Hi, Miss Gagel. I want my clients. I'm glad I found you, Jason. 50% of your profits, or I take it all. Yes.
I'm the old guy all of a sudden just because this kid is 12?
We're under siege.
Oh. I can only afford one of you. Hey!
Stay away from my clients.
T-brain. Come here.